Repeat after me, Hoosier Nation. A-N-O. A-N-O.
And oh, A
A-N-O.
and oh,
Indiana did it again, folks. Played a full game, 60 minutes, didn't trail, won by multiple scores, didn't break a sweat, except maybe for a couple moments in the first half. This team's a juggernaut. This team's a freight train. Get out of the way. Michigan State's
a
up
wagon.
next. Spartans aren't going to pose a problem, right? Spartans aren't going to cause any issues, right?
I don't know.
Saturday on the road,
No,
kind of a bigger road
no,
environment.
no,
Well,
don't care.
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss Michigan State a little bit later on in this episode. Of course, recap Washington, the easy win over the Huskies, another good football team that Indiana knocked off, another good football team that came into Bloomington off a bye week, mixed up some things. Indiana didn't have any issues with that. Recap all that, talk a little college football playoffs, some scenarios, some standings, blah, blah, blah. Indiana men's basketball knocked off Tennessee. We got a lot to dive into here on episode 337 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Wednesday, October 30th, 2024, where I am your host, Nathan Krishnan. Here with me is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens, from the other side of the world. Halloween is tomorrow, Matt. No tricks from Indiana, all treats, smashing Washington 31-17. What are your main takeaways from that victory on Saturday afternoon?
We rock. That's what I took away. That whole day,
Yeah, baby.
from game day to the end of that Saturday when everybody left the stadium.
Yeah,
Perfect. It was literally perfect. It
chef's
was
kiss.
perfect from beginning to end. Um, and there's like even little things about it that just show how perfect it was. The Whether it's the camera shot, the camera work from the Big Ten Network on the D'Angelo Pons interception return, where they just slowly pan the camera out, and for the first time
Yes.
in my entire life, the upper right corner of the home sideline, sorry, of the opposing sideline, the
Yep.
right corner of
Yep.
what is the west stand. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do my west. I think maybe east. One of the stands. One of the east or west stands
Yep.
is full with people with towels
Yep.
and just everybody's going bananas, hugging each other, throwing things in the air. It was extraordinary. It was beautiful. Washington did have me a little bit nervous, especially at the start
Sure.
of the second half, and then we just decided to go. You know what? I've seen Michigan and Michigan State do nothing but run the football all
Iowa.
year.
Iowa did it too.
Iowa exists. Heck,
Smash
Alabama
them.
might go into a strategy right soon where they just run the ball permanently, even though they're Ryan Williams. Um, I said, you know what? We saw Michigan last year win the national championship by running it. Let's just run it down their throats. And Washington, just like in that Michigan national title game, was completely unable to stop the
Nope.
run. And IU ends up winning the game. And all is good. And then obviously, next day, we had a basketball scrimmage, and that was sick. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But football comes first on this podcast
Oh, for
for the
sure. Yeah. Until
foreseeable
further
future,
notice. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which should be the same way that the athletic department looks at this,
Yeah.
because football should come first at this point in time, even though basketball
Yeah.
might also rock.
Yeah. I mean, 31-17 over Washington. It wasn't that close. Especially once Indiana figured out that Washington was playing more zone and all you really had to do was just run it down their throat. And Indiana, because they have a smart coaching staff and a team that adapts very nicely, became relentless, ruthless on the ground, just punished Washington into submission through the one of the most underrated running backs in the Big Ten, even right now. Again, you find little things you find a lot of things about Indiana that are underrated right now, including their entire team. Hashtag or shout out a people, but Justice Ellison, right? 29 carries, 123 yards. Everyone's going to look at that, go, yards per carry wasn't that high. Yeah, talk about sounding uneducated. We know Justice Ellison can reel off the explosive run. He did it against Nebraska like 8 times or whatever that was. I did it against every opponent, frankly, Indiana's faced so far. But it's Washington. It was all about powering through contact, getting those extra yards on the carry. And just like you said, very similar to what Michigan did against Penn State last year, against a lot of other teams last year. Indiana just kind of pounded Washington's will out of Bloomington, Indiana on Saturday. They just ran it and ran it and ran it and ran it. And then when Taven Jackson had to throw it, he threw it. And when Taven Jackson had to run it, he ran it. And what we said on this podcast came true last week. Like, it's not going to be Nebraska. It's going to be a little bit weird here and there. I said James Evans would punt in the first half. He did. He punted. Oh shoot! What a shocking bit of disappointment there. No, like no, not nothing. It was gonna happen again. Five, 5.5 points was disrespectful. Just like 7.5 points against Michigan State is disrespectful. Um, Indiana was just so much better than Washington. And it's such a breath of fresh air. And it's very similar to other national championship winning teams we've seen in the past, where Indiana, through October and into November, is figuring out we can beat you through the air. We can beat you on the ground. We can beat you with our defense. We can beat you with our offensive line. We can beat you with our pass rush. We can beat you in about 7, 8, 9 different ways. Doesn't matter if you're a top 10 team. Doesn't matter if you're an unranked team. Doesn't matter if you're home. Doesn't matter if you're away. Doesn't matter if it's day, night, cold, warm, snow, sun. Doesn't matter. We're gonna get into our bag every single Saturday, and we're gonna find a different way to beat you. Or maybe we play the greatest hits, and Kurtis Rourke throws for 30-75 on your face. Like, there are a lot of different ways to get the job done. As far as this Indiana team is concerned, it was a little bit, awkward here and there with Taven Jackson, but at the end of the day, he still kind of got through the game with maybe just 1 or 2 really bad mistakes. The interception, I don't even count as a bad mistake. The receiver, Cooper, was hit from behind and the ball popped up in the air, but a couple other things Jackson got away with.
Should have been a guy.
Jackson got away with on Saturday, but you just saw this team again, great attention to detail, great focus. And again, guys, just take a step back for a second, right? 8-0 is great, all this. Offensive line, running game dictated Indiana winning a Big Ten game with College Game Day in town, and we didn't have to worry about it. Like, the offensive line, what a unit. I mean, that Carter Smith, Mike Haddock, Bray Lynch, Drew Evans, Trey Weddick, what a gang up front, man. They are, the best 5-person unit since the Jackson 5 in Indiana? Like, I think it's pretty fair to say. The best 5-person squad.
The Jackson 5 might have them beat.
I don't know. Like, we can talk about
76, that. The 76 starting Hoosiers, I think, might have them beat a little bit.
I guess. If you really want to get there, whatever. I'll give you that one. If we have. But it's close. It's pretty close.
They might be the second best 5-person unit in the history of the.
If Indiana doesn't have a first round, like if Kurtis Rourke's not a first round pick in April, and I think that's in play, Carter Smith is going to be Indiana's first round pick in a while. I don't think there's any discussion. It's going to be.
He should be up there.
Too. We'll see how many. Yeah, but all I'm saying is this 5-person squad up front. I tweeted this out and it took off on Saturday. 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss. They had 1 penalty all game. It was a false start in the first drive, and then after that, nothing. The whole team didn't commit a penalty after the false start on the first drive. But it's a little bit more impressive when you talk about the offensive line because there are so many different ways for offensive linemen to do stuff, especially in the NFL. The NFL, you're seeing illegal formations, you're seeing illegal shifts, you're seeing illegal man downfield penalties. This offensive line didn't do any of that. They could have. Indiana used screen passes. Indiana has pre-snap motion, but the attention to detail across each of those five players is there. Don't take that for granted. That is not normal. They are
I
exceptional at their attention to detail and just smashing teams left, right, and center. It doesn't matter how good you are.
I know the Broyles award goes to the best coordinator, but you should just put Bob Bostad up for
That's
that at
such
this.
a good point. That's a great point. That's not going to happen. But
It's not gonna happen. But I
I
mean,
shouldn't.
the
No self-imposed
if
limitations. But I guess that's like other
if
people involved. So
if people actually around the country paid any attention to Indiana football,
yeah.
for even a short amount of time, to see the difference in the offensive line from 2 years ago to now, and the only real difference in that time, because it's not like we got a ton of offensive line transfers in. The only difference is a change in coach. That's it.
Yep.
That's really the only difference. This offensive line probably would have even been better if we were healthy, because this offensive line would have Nick Kidwell on it,
Oh my
who is
gosh. Yeah.
the top overall. Some people are saying he's our best offensive lineman going into the season, and he'll be back next year, hopefully. But
I don't know.
yeah, I think.
We'll see. There's some eligibility stuff there, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, he didn't play a snap this year, so he should still have another year of eligibility.
Yeah.
And he didn't even when he even played a spring game. I don't even remember if he did that. So, yeah, I mean, the offensive line, the turnaround has been uh, other. I mean, the turnaround of the offensive line really mirrors the turnaround of the football program. Seriously, um, almost instant with Bostad, almost instant with Cignetti.
So, well,
I don't.
do we have to talk about Darren Hiller? Those days? I mean, it was awful.
I mean, Darren Hiller deserves to be in the Hague. I'm pretty sure.
Look, I don't know
Like
about that, but
there's war crimes been committed.
I mean, we
Him
had
and
some brutal. Like, it's not good when Matt and I are like, this is just not functioning. Like, there are basic mistakes being made here that are endangering the careers of guys like Michael Penix and Connor Bazelak. Like, it's not good. It's not like it's basic stuff. I don't know the technicalities of offensive line play, but Darren Hiller sure as hell didn't, and Bob Bostad
can
obviously does.
can we give the anti Broyles Award in memoriam to Darren Hiller's career? Can we do that?
By the way, Nick Kidwell was entering his seventh college season in 2024. He received an additional year of eligibility in 2024 after missing 8 games last season. This is according to the IDS. The NCAA may or may not grant him an extra year next year. I hope they do. I would love to
Hope
see
they
Nick
do.
Kidwell in an IU uniform next season. But all in all, like Indiana really, really took care of business against this Washington team. I loved the performance from the wide receivers in this game too. Like when I sit here and I think about how it's a game where it's not Kurtis Rourke and the wide receivers have to help the quarterback, like the quarterback has to help the wide receivers. I thought Omar Cooper once again had another good game. I've been so pleased with Miles Cross all season, and I thought he had a few nice plays. Miles Price, of course, not only in the receiving game, a couple catches, but he also had that massive punt return. Surratt is going to break through massively against Michigan State, just like he did against
Mhm.
Nebraska. Like I can't wait to watch Surratt against Michigan State on Saturday. It was a really thorough performance. Defensively, Indiana. Talk about the secondary. My God, I mean, D'Angelo Ponce, National Player of the Week according to the Bronco Nagurski Award. For the National Player of the Week this year, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. This was one of the most exciting players that Curt Cignetti brought in this season, but I kind of held back a little. I self-imposed limited myself in the preseason because I was sitting here and saying, D'Angelo Ponce is entering his second year of college football. And he's going to go up against a bunch of old quarterbacks. We know how this game goes in 2024 college football. I'm going to get fired up about D'Angelo Ponce in 2025, maybe 2026. Yeah,
Mm.
sure. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the guy's started since day one this season. And I mean that's a draft tape highlight reel that he put on Saturday. It was amazing. Like a lot of times pick sixes are kind of a product of a little bit of fortune, good luck.
Yeah.
The ball ends up in your hand and you just kind of do the rest. D'Angelo Ponce read that play. Like he read that
Yes.
play.
The ball was still deflected. Not to poo poo his interception, but he read the play and then got a very
I mean, just
very fortunate deflection that it still ended up on its correct path. If that ball hadn't been deflected, he still would have intercepted it, by the way. But
such a great
it,
play. And then,
it was perfect. Yeah.
just for good measure, he goes and says, in a game where Taven Jackson's starting at quarterback, not Kurtis Rourke, let me just go out and pick off Will Rogers again on a play that was even more complicated. If you ask me, the second pick was more impressive than the first one
It
because
was, yeah.
Pons is backtracking on a 25 or 20-yard ball down the left sideline, high points the ball, brings it down, finishes the process of the catch. This is second year of college football. And man, I know a lot of times we say this Indiana team is the best ever, best in a long time, whatever. But we saw Taiwan Mullen have an All-American type season in 2020. And to me,
Yeah.
Taiwan Mullen might be my favorite IU football player in recent memory.
Yep.
D'Angelo Ponce, if he follows that path, we're gonna have a really, really special corner at Indiana. I mean, what is your perspective on D'Angelo Ponce here? He's in his second season. Am I going? Is my bar too low here? I mean, Ponce was so good in his true freshman season at James Madison, freshman All American. This year, we're seeing what he's doing. I mean, this guy seems like a superstar already, if not emerging for sure.
He's emerging as a superstar, and he should be. I mean, plays in the same conference as like the Will Johnsons of the world,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You have Jabbar Muhammad at
Yep.
Oregon.
Yep.
I don't know why. I mean, I don't think D'Angelo Ponce was going to make first team Big Ten, but there's no reason why he shouldn't be second team at this point.
Which is crazy
And
to say.
I mean, he's a true sophomore, right?
It's a
So I
true
mean, the sky's the
sophomore.
lit for him.
I also love the fact
Did
he's a
Taiwan
Florida
Mullen
guy
make
too.
first team Big Ten?
He was
Well, yeah, I mean,
he was All American, Taiwan Mullen in
yeah, he
2020.
was.
AP
Yeah,
All American.
yeah, he was. Yep. I mean, he's gonna get there. I genuinely think that D'Angelo Ponce will be there. I mean, I was high on him from minute one just because he's a Florida kid.
Well, that's what I'm
Um,
saying too, because like remember that was Tom Allen's wheelhouse, right? To his credit, and I'm not gonna I mean Tom Allen's wheelhouse was Florida, and I do think it is valuable to have Florida as part of your recruiting strategy, a
yeah.
significant part of your recruiting strategy. If D'Angelo Ponce is a success story, hello, let's go, baby.
I mean, that would be nice. I think it's actually better and easier to just recruit Metro Atlanta. And you're looking at Juju down in
Yep,
Atlanta,
Julian Lewis.
right?
Yep.
Julian Lewis, yeah. And so if you can go get Juju, I mean, you just open up the world down there. But that's some recruiting talk, anyways. But that's besides the point. No, I mean, I've been high on D'Angelo Ponce since day one. I think on the podcast here, talking about him being our best corner this year and being super excited, like one
Yeah,
of
I
the players I'm
was.
most excited for in the preview. I
I was
think I was
thinking. I
dead
was
on with
thinking
that.
long term. I was thinking long term. Man,
I was thinking long and short term. That guy's the truth. Um, and then obviously, like, I mean, Mikel Kamara is a superstar.
oh,
Um,
just
CJ
so good.
CJ West
I
CJ West
love
is a
CJ West,
superstar.
man. I
He's
love
so good.
CJ West.
Carpenter's a dog. Are both of our linebackers? I was
Yeah,
talking about this the other day. A sneaky MVP for the defense is Jalen Walker.
yeah, yeah. hundred
That dude,
percent,
that
hundred
dude
percent.
makes the winning plays. Like all the credit goes to D'Angelo Ponce, who's been
Yep,
again really good.
headliner. Yeah,
All the credit goes to
Kamara, deserves a lot.
Kamara,
Bryant Haynes, the coordinator's done a great job.
Bryant Haynes done a great job, but Jalen Walker's been
Aiden
freaking
Fisher, of
fantastic.
course, kind of captaining in the middle.
That's what I was trying. I could not remember Aiden Fisher's name to life of me. My bad.
It looked
But
like he
yeah.
was a little banged up there in the middle of the game, and we all held our breath, and he was back. He was back in play.
Oh my God, that's why I said not like this. I was like, we're winning this game, and we're putting our final foot down in bounds to kind of
And
secure this
and we're
game.
seeing some of the
And he
depth
goes down.
guys. Yeah, you're seeing some of the
Was
depth guys at linebacker doing some things as well with Jacob Mangum Farrar. We've seen Isaiah Jones. I think Isaiah Jones is next man up.
Magnum,
We saw him against Northwestern when
Magnum
Walker came
Farrar
in.
has been here for what?
Yeah.
Is he our
Well, he was he
Perry
was at
Ellis?
he was at
He's been here
Stanford
forever.
for a while. Then he played a bunch last year. He's a key rotation, sort of a key depth piece in our
No,
linebacking.
I swear, if you hadn't told me he played at Stanford, I would have thought he played for us for like the last 6 years. I don't. Him
That's good.
and
Hoosier for life, baby.
and
Hoosier for life.
Cignetti. Like those two. I feel like I've heard their names so much.
Indiana is 8-0. They've covered in every game. When's the disrespect going to stop? AP poll. What are you doing?
Okay, no, I have a take on
CFP rankings out next week, but AP poll. What are you doing?
I have a take on this. When you look at where IU was ranked last week, only one team above them lost. Only one team.
Okay.
And they lost to a team that was ranked behind Indiana.
LSU, yeah. Texas A&M.
LSU, Texas A&M, and Texas A&M jumped up to where LSU was, and then LSU went below IU. So, yes, IU didn't move, but the team that jumped IU is going to lose again this season. Texas A&M is going to lose again. Like they still have a hard rest of their schedule. I still believe they play Texas, I believe, down the stretch. They might even play Georgia. I don't remember. Like all those SEC teams that are above Indiana will lose. As long as IU keeps winning, they're going to keep moving up. And it's just IU won, but then everybody that was already above them still won last week, and that's the problem with the AP poll is the AP poll inertia. Once you get up to the top, there's only so many spots to keep going up, and there's only so many teams that can lose to keep going up. And you need those teams that are above you to lose, because otherwise people are just going to go chalk, because it's much easier just to put, 1 through 8 won this week. Oh, that doesn't matter. I'm too lazy to actually go and put any thought into my rankings, and I can just copy and paste this over and then send it off in an email at 11:59 on Saturday night. So I genuinely think that IU will move up as the season goes on. If you win these next 2 games and you're 10-0, I think IU has a very good chance of being top 5 in that Ohio State matchup come 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now.
You're right, but there are also some fundamental errors with how the top 13 is broken down right now. Like, in no universe should Ohio State have the number 4 spot in the country. Like, we talk about inertia. Like it all yeah, a lot of teams above Indiana won, but Ohio State looked awful. And in 2024, AP voters should significantly punish a team for looking how Ohio State did against Nebraska, especially after what Indiana did to Nebraska the previous week. By the way, there's also a fundamental issue with Clemson getting ranked ahead of Indiana. Because as far as I love to sit here and say Indiana's winning and winning and winning and winning, and it's great, I love it. I'm basking in the glory of that. Clemson had the same energy with Clemson that you're having with Indiana. Yeah, Indiana hasn't been a top 25 team. I get it. That's a fair justification for putting Indiana where they are. I'm not saying that. But Indiana's resume against Ohio State, against Clemson got their booty smashed by Georgia.
Booty smash, yeah.
And I don't care how much they're beating teams by over the last few weeks, because guess what? Indiana's doing the same thing. And you know what Indiana didn't do? Lose by 31 to Georgia.
True.
So
They
I
haven't
think there are
lost.
some really fundamental errors, like shockingly problematic errors with what I'm seeing in this AP poll. By the way, Texas, the same team that, another team that won over the weekend, they didn't look great. They didn't look great against Vanderbilt. Talk about 3-point win. Talk about some ups and downs in that game. And you had the energy, right? Indiana didn't beat anybody. Indiana didn't beat nobody. Who'd Texas beat? We're going to give them credit for Michigan and Oklahoma in 2024? We're not going to give Indiana credit for beating Michigan when that happens in a couple of weeks. You know that's going to be true. So why are we giving Texas that same credit for beating Michigan? So I'm looking forward to the CFP release next week because the AP poll has lost a lot of credibility in my eyes. Like whatever I'm seeing here, there are some fundamentally wrong, rankings right now. As far as the AP top 25 is concerned, we'll take number 13. Like, I know Cignetti doesn't give a rat's about this, but I'm gonna pay close attention to the CFP rankings when they come out next Tuesday. Again, that's the biggest thing happening on Tuesday in America. And so I'm gonna look forward to seeing the CFP release to see how they of course Indiana gonna be 9-0 when that happens. If Indiana's 8-1, we're gonna have different conversations. But Indiana, we're looking forward to seeing a 9-0 Indiana, and I'm gonna pay close attention to seeing how the CFP committee uh, assesses Indiana's schedule. And I'm not expecting Indiana to be number one, but what I'm saying is how does the CFP committee look at Indiana versus Ohio State versus Texas versus Clemson? Like that's the 4-team group I'm paying very close attention to because if you're telling me a one-loss Texas or a one-loss Clemson has a better resume than Indiana right now, I don't know what to say. So I'm going to pay close attention to that. Indiana, of course, I think would beat Texas or Clemson on a neutral site. That's just
Mhm.
my 2 cents on that. But of course, the only time we'll be able to see that is the playoff. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports, and we got to talk about the men's basketball team for a second here, Matt. They go into Knoxville,
Yep.
and I watched that thing for 40 minutes, man, wire to wire, and Indiana's defense looked good. I loved how IU pushed the tempo. They go into Knoxville, preseason number 12 Tennessee. Indiana wins by 5. I'm not going to sit here and throw a parade for it because it's an exhibition and it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. Indiana won by 4, 66-62, not 67. But 4-point win, road game Tennessee. Indiana plays with tempo. Renew looks good. Miles Rice looks good. Those are my immediate thoughts. What are yours as far as Indiana's 4-point win?
I think they need to hang a banner for this. No. I look. I think this was a promising sign.
Yeah.
Um, and I know some people poo-pooed it, being like, it's just an exhibition. No, it was a home game for Tennessee,
Was not a neutral. Not neutral.
not a neutral site, a home game. They had the student section there.
Should have played this game in Lexington, though. That would have been funny.
That would have been hilarious, but also disgusting, but hilarious. Um, Home game for Tennessee. The student section was there.
Yeah, they
Uh,
were. It was a
it was
good
a packed
environment.
crowd. It was a good environment,
Indiana fans, too.
and both teams played their starters 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was a real game. It's not that if you watch the game at all, the intensity of it was not a scrimmage. There's a very fine line between, or there's a very obvious difference between like a scrimmage speed, like when you see IU play against any of the smaller like a
Sure.
Marion, right,
Sure,
or
sure,
something
sure.
like that. It's very clear. All right, they're going at half speed now, especially the last 5-10 minutes of that basketball game was full speed. Both teams wanted to win that so badly because obviously extremely competitive. And you know who
Yeah.
really shined in that last 4 minutes of play?
Miles Rice.
Miles Rice. Miles Rice really, really shut. I mean, there was multiple moments where it was basically like, "Give me the effing ball." And he had that kind of demeanor to him. I think he even said it. If you can mouth read on one of the possessions. Um, he ended up hitting a long two on that possession to kind of
Yeah,
secure the lead a little bit more. Um, I mean, it was just a beautiful performance from
so
somebody who I
good.
think is going to be he's going to be the second best point guard in the league. Um, and I don't remember the last time I've been able to talk about an IU point guard in such a way.
He was so good.
Um,
You were talking
really,
about the intensity of the game. There were three technicals. There were three technicals in the, and
okay, okay.
it was a little bit, yeah, like, okay, what are we doing here? But it's true. Facts only
I
in
mean,
an exhibition.
that should make the older crowd even happier, if I'm going to be honest, because
Yeah,
they're showing fight and
yeah,
tenacity, and they're getting technicals, and
a little bit
they're
of
being a little
a little
nasty.
chippy, a
It's
little
it's a little
edgy. Yeah,
chippy, little competitive
I love it.
in
It's sports,
in a
baby.
charity scrimmage.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes things get intense, even with charity related things. Um,
Now do have to have this conversation because I do watch a lot of national college basketball, and I
yeah.
will say this: I am not sure that Tennessee is very deserving of their rating. Semicolon, however, comma. That still does not take away from the fact that IU did go in there, shot 4 of 17 from three, and still won by two scores.
Or 19.
So
Um, I think
poor man.
Tennessee's a good team. I think Tennessee's a good team. I love Zakai Ziegler. I have for a long time, especially on the
He's really
defensive
good.
side, especially on the
Yeah.
defensive side, which makes Miles Rice's performance even better. I don't know about Rick Barnes winning a national championship anytime soon, but I do think he is a very good college basketball coach, just as far as getting his team through the ups and downs of a regular season. We saw his success story with Dalton Connect last season. He deserves a lot of credit for that. I think Rick Barnes deserves a lot of recruiting credit for getting Felix Okpara from Ohio State. I'm looking forward to seeing Okpara this year play with Tennessee. I think he's going to take a step forward. Um, I think they're a good team. I think they are a good team. And of course, this year in the SEC with Calipari going to Arkansas, Kentucky figuring some things out on the fly. Alabama, of course, as good as they are. There are going to be a lot of good teams in the SEC, so Tennessee will eat some losses, but I think Tennessee's going to be a good team this year. I think they are going to be a top
Chaz,
ranked team over the course of the
Chaz,
season.
there were some lies told about Chaz Lanier. That's all I'm going to say. There has been some lies told about that guy
Yeah.
because
If
he looked like booty cheeks
if you
on
guys want more IU basketball thoughts from me and Matt, we were on Ant Space last week. I think it was like 2 hours long, and
you can skip the first hour and a half of that
yeah,
for your own
exactly.
mental.
We bring it home the last 30 minutes or so. A lot of IU basketball thoughts, recruiting thoughts, college basketball, just the way we assess things with the season starting on Monday. Should be exciting. Can't wait for that. Folks, yeah, we tip our cap to the men's basketball team for winning the week. If you'd like to find us on social media, you can find us on social media at Indiana HQ. You can find us at the Hoosier Sound. Make sure you like us, retweet us, share our stuff, follow us if you haven't already. If you do, spread the word. That's how we grow this platform and reach as many fans as possible. Leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. That is how you can help us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Speaking of passionate IU fans, Matt, college game day was seen on Saturday morning. I went to undergrad in 09, 10, 11, 12, graduated in 13, um, got graduate got a graduate degree from IU, and I lived by the stadium pretty much my entire life. And when I was at IU, and I was always curious, right? Saturdays, going to the football game, like college game day in Tuscaloosa, right? College game day in Ann Arbor, college game day in Columbus and Athens. I was like, it would be fun to have it here one day. And it exceeded all expectations, completely hit it out of the park. The sun was out, the leaves looked great. overcame a power outage right as the show started, apparently, according to Pat McAfee. It was a 12 out of 10 would recommend again type of Saturday morning at Memorial Stadium. Matt, Lee Corso, awesome. Curt Cignetti interview, everything just top notch stuff. What were your thoughts seeing College Game Day on Saturday morning in Bloomington?
You know, some of you might call me a pussy, and that's fine. But I shed a few tears. I shed a few tears
It's crazy.
on Saturday night for me.
Yeah,
I stayed
for
up
you, right?
after work and I drank some coffee because I knew
Yeah,
I was going to be up for the
got to,
next
got to.
6 hours.
Right.
Uh, and then I turned it on my TV and I just sat there alone in my apartment,
That's it.
wishing
In the fields.
I could teleport through my TV screen to be there in person
In the
because
fields.
it looked so special. I mean, it wasn't even just the videos and the footage from Game Day, which, by the way,
Oh, so
Game Day
good.
makes every campus look good.
Yes,
They
I
didn't
know.
even have they didn't even have to try with IU. Like
Oh,
everybody that's ever been on campus knows how perfect Bloomington is,
yeah,
and how perfect IU's campus is. And
exactly.
they didn't even try. They just I feel like the camera crew had so much fun. 'Cause, like they'll have shots of like
Yeah,
students walking to class, right, in like the most pristine
yeah,
parts of campus, or they'll have shots of inside a classroom, whatever, and the views outside the
yeah.
classroom, or whatever. That's if the producers are doing their job and not having fun on the town in Bloomington. I watched every second of Game Day. They did not have those shots. Not once. Not once did I see a classroom shot because those MFers were too busy in upstairs. Okay, because I've listened to the Stanford Steve pod. I listened
Knicks
to the Pat
upstairs.
McAfee pod. They frequented those establishments quite a bit, and I have stories from other people running to John Gruden.
Yeah, we heard.
Um,
We heard. Yeah, we got boots on the
um,
ground.
we do have boots on the ground. I heard these people were in the places where they're supposed to be. Um, but no, I mean they didn't even have to try. You could just show a little south end zone plaza of just it was a mass of red,
Oh,
and they show the tailgating fields a little bit, and it just looks like how the normal tailgating fields look, which is just an absolute zombie
yeah,
infestation. I mean, it was perfect.
cinema.
It really was. And the leaves were changing colors too. That came popped on the camera as well.
Yeah,
I mean, they could not have picked a more perfect and perfect weather too. The
no,
weather
it
was
was just
absolutely
it's
gorgeous.
just perfect. It's all across the
I
board.
Yeah, I had extreme FOMO.
Yeah,
Like
it was nuts.
I've been homesick a lot
Yeah,
since I've been here. It's just a natural. You move halfway across the world, and
yeah,
like
I get it.
I miss Taco Bell sometimes, or
Oh, sure.
I miss walking into a grocery store and getting yelled at by a small Hispanic woman in Spanish for not using the correct shopping cart. It's the little things, right? And that was a big thing for me. I
All right.
genuinely it
Okay.
hit me in the feels.
Yeah, it was awesome. Flat out incredible.
Did you
Yeah,
like?
yeah, I
Did you like
no,
this?
we're not even we're not even that is we're gonna go right through that one. Like Justice Ellison, we're gonna go right after contact. After contact. The Lee Corso stuff, just too good, just amazing. Pat McAfee, I thought said it best. Like he told Curt Cignetti, like, this program is a sleeping giant. And we didn't see the crowd's response in 2020 when Indiana was at the top of the college football rankings, as far as top 12 pretty much all season because of COVID. We didn't see it. We didn't see the crowd response. And then in 2021, you shoot yourself in the foot on the first possession or two of the season, and you just never really rekindled it. As great as the crowd was for the Cincinnati game, you lose, and really after that, you kind of, saw everything derail. Um, we didn't see the crowd. We didn't see the crowds in 2020. It would have been this good. It would have been absolute scenes to see Michigan and Indiana in 2020, Maryland and Indiana in 2020. 2020. But we didn't get the chance, and we are now. And Sleeping giant is how you would say it. Pat McAfee talks about how much the state of Indiana loves football. It's true. We've seen it our whole lives. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's pro, college, high school. High school football in Indiana is really, really, a wonderful scene. I grew up in the state. Doesn't matter, northwest, south. From the region to what New Albany. What's the southernmost point of Indiana? So it's pretty far. New Albany. I know New Albany's right over the border. Yeah, I was gonna say, right? Like I knew it's just, north, south, east, west doesn't matter. The state loves football. We seen it when Purdue's had great teams, right? The Tyler Trent game when they beat Ohio State was an unbelievable atmosphere. Um, and Indiana is really kind of getting into sort of the peak fandom stage of
Mm.
college football, that era right now. Peak fandom, peak college football fandom era is what Indiana is going through right now. And it's wonderful. And game day was absolutely amazing. Hey, shout out to them for picking Washington, Indiana. Like they didn't have to, but they did. And it was worth it. I think all indications are from the ESPN folks, it was worth it. And I think you saw 2 million viewers for a game between Washington and Indiana on Saturday morning. Like
On Big
excellent.
Ten Network,
No, the game, right? The game's on BTN. The game's a noon kickoff. Game day had a great thing. Like and BTN did a great job as well with the coverage. I think Cignetti or Scott Dolson put in a call to the BTN folks and said, "Give us overhead shots, give us drone shots, give us crowd shots. We need all of them." And I don't blame him because that was a smart move. And so,
I
absolute
mean,
scenes.
it was probably for everybody involved.
Yeah.
I thought it was last note I'll say about game day.
Yep.
I grew up with Lee Corso being a huge part of my life.
Yeah. And Dick
Like
Vitale
every
for the basketball
Dick
side.
Dick Vitale for the basketball side as well. Both of those guys, like I remember being like 7, 8 years old, getting up to watch Tim
Yeah.
Tebow play football.
Yes.
They have college game day in Gainesville. You'd have it in Starkville, Mississippi, wherever the game was
Right.
playing. They basically would travel with
Yeah.
Florida at the height of the Gator prowess under Urban
Yep.
Meyer.
Yep.
And
Man.
Ali Corso was just always there. He was always
Yeah.
there, always so fun, putting on the headgear. So many Georgia, Florida, world's largest cocktail
Yep.
parties, games. They put the headgear on for.
Yep.
I remember all of that.
Yep.
It was like a huge part of my childhood. And then I go to IU, and then I realize, the history that he has at
It's not the
IU
same.
being
Yeah.
the
Both
first.
that. Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's not the same, but also, I
Yeah.
mean, still, he's a huge part of the football
Yep.
program. He really
Absolutely.
turned IU from a nothing burger to, I mean, it's not that the '90s, the '80s, the success of IU football in the '80s and '90s, right,
Yep.
doesn't doesn't happen without Lee Corso doing what
No,
he
it
did
doesn't.
in the '70s. So, and being the first guy to kind of break that barrier
Yes.
as a football coach and win a bowl game at
Yep.
Indiana.
Holiday Bowl
Um,
1979, baby.
I mean, he deserved everything he got in Bloomington and
Yep.
more.
Yep.
Um, so
So
I'm glad that they kind of put that bow on the story there. It's he can
yeah.
go off and do whatever he wants to do.
No game day will ever be the same for Lee Corso. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful to see that. Um, let's talk about Michigan State. The
So
Spartans are going to host Indiana on Saturday afternoon at 3:30 on Peacock. So make sure you have that ready to go. And if you're a bar or an establishment or whatever restaurant in Indiana or around the country, have Peacock ready to go on Saturday
yep,
afternoon because one of the best teams in the country is playing on Peacock on Saturday afternoon. Indiana is going to be a 7.5 point favorite. Or, well, actually, I think it's going to get pushed out. But Indiana right now is a 7.5 point favorite with an over under of 51 against Michigan State in East Lansing. So if you do the math, that's something like a 29-22, 29-21, 30-22 final score. in
We're
East
not
Lansing.
scoring 28 points
We're
on this
scoring
team.
56.
But we're scoring more. Yeah, exactly.
Michigan State's 4-4, and once again, Indiana's facing a first-year head coach at his program. In Michigan State's Jonathan Smith, who came over from Oregon State after Oregon State was kicked out of the Pac-12. Oregon State was very good the last couple of seasons, and now Jonathan Smith is taking that mentality and mindset over to East Lansing. It's been a wild ride. Michigan State is the Big Ten's craziest team. I mean, I don't think it's really close. I think as far as their highs being very, very, very high and their lows being very, 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 very low, Michigan State has had results all season that have been absolutely nuts. They looked god awful against Florida Atlantic in their first game. Then they bounced back. Aiden Childs threw for like 360 against Maryland. Childs came over from Oregon State, dual threat quarterback. He's a youngster, one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league. Michigan State went to Maryland, won. Childs was awesome. Michigan State looked really bad against Boston College and against Ohio State. But then, how about a wire-to-wire win over Iowa at home a couple of weeks ago? So this Spartans team is all over the map, Matt. As you look at this, what are the ways Indiana can really get into Michigan State, take the lead, gain some separation? What are the advantages that Indiana has here against the Spartans?
Trench play on both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line. IU is significantly better than Michigan State. And then IU's passing attack against maybe one of the worst secondaries in the league.
It's bad.
So, I mean, I know it's really funny. I've seen a lot of people be like, but you know what? I think Michigan State could really give Indiana trouble. And I look at what gives Michigan State trouble and who they've played well against. And I've looked who Indiana's played well against, which is everybody. But who Indiana's really played well against and who they haven't. And the people that they don't play very well against have good secondaries. And Michigan State doesn't have one of those. And people that Indiana doesn't play very or as well against as people that have really good offensive lines. The defense can't get pressure. Well, Michigan State might have one of the worst offensive lines in the Big Ten. And so I'm like, okay. And then I look at Michigan State's strength and I go, okay, they have an errant quarterback who likes to throw interceptions and also hit big plays. Well, Indiana doesn't give up a ton of big plays.
No.
And they like to get interceptions. I'm like, okay. And you go on the defensive side and you go, well, they really like to stop the run, but that's about all they can do. And then I think that Kurtis Rourke is possibly coming back for this game. And so we're going to throw for another 350 yards. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, how is Michigan State going to give us a hard time? We literally counter them. Like, if this is Pokemon, they're a grass type and we're fire. Like, this is not this can be a walk in the park, basically what I'm saying. As long as IU can compose themselves and handle the probably sold out Spartan Stadium, as long as they can handle the Michigan State's environment in Spartan Stadium and maybe even get out to an early lead, I really don't see how it's possible for IU to lose this game. I just don't.
Yeah, I do think that's going to be the first key here. I was talking to Matt before we started here this morning in the U.S., and I was like, I would be kind of annoyed if Indiana's leading every minute, every second of every game streak ended in this game. I feel like this would be a nice opportunity for Indiana to go out, take an early 7-0, 10-0, 14-0 lead, and force Michigan State into one-dimensional football. They are balanced. Michigan State tries to slow the game down. They run it just as much as they throw it. Aiden Childs is a big part of that because on some of the dropbacks they call, he's able to take off, pick up yardage on the ground. Forcing Michigan State into one-dimensional football is Indiana's easiest path to win. It's not like you can't beat Michigan State in other ways, but I think Matt's vicious takedown of the Spartans is pretty much on point. And I think 7.5 is a number that's way too low. Especially considering on Saturday afternoon, it looks like we will get absolutely beautiful weather in East Lansing for a football game. Does not look like
and Kurtis Rourke.
as of Wednesday morning in the US, it does not look like we will have precipitation, much wind in East Lansing on Saturday, which lines up wonderfully with Kurtis Rourke's likely return to the football field as Indiana's QB1 on Saturday, so that the Heisman March can continue for number 9. Indiana should just come, should really just dominate as far as the passing game is concerned. Uh, Michigan State's offensive tackles might be the worst pair in the Big Ten, not to be too harsh. But Mikhail Kamara, Linnell Carr, Mario Landino, Marcus Burris, if he lines up outside, he should be able to get into the backfield very quickly. But of course, with Aiden Childs, you have to be disciplined. You can't let him break contain. You want to keep him constrained. You want to keep him controlled. You don't want him to bounce it out, explode for big plays. Because Childs, I think, eventually will be one of the most incredible, explosive dual threat quarterbacks in college football. I'm a big Aiden Childs fan. I just think right now he's learning some things about the game. He's learning some things about the Big Ten. And I think Jonathan Smith, unlike the Indianapolis Colts front office and coaching staff, I think Jonathan Smith is letting Aiden Childs play through some of this stuff in Big Ten football this year. So I look at this and I just have a tough time. I mean, Michigan State's path to a win here is take an early lead, stay balanced. Nick Marsh is a very good receiver on the outside. You would think Indiana lines up D'Angelo Pons with him. Nick Marsh could win that match. It's possible Nick Marsh wins that matchup, and if that's the case, then that's something else Indiana has to work through. But at the end of the day, Aiden Childs takes a lot of sacks. The offensive tackles have really struggled for Michigan State this year. IU should have the advantage up front. Kurtis Rourke should be able to pick apart Michigan State secondary. Davis Warren, Michigan's starting quarterback on Saturday, had a pretty efficient day through the air. Of course, Michigan runs the ball a lot, but when Davis Warren, who's had his major struggles this season, when Davis Warren threw the ball, it's pretty effective. Donovan Edwards threw a touchdown pass. You can pick apart this Michigan State defense through the air pretty easily. If Taven Jackson has to go, I think you got to let Taven Jackson throw the football if that's what it comes down to. But all indications are that right now, Kurtis Rourke should be able to go against MSU. We're going to talk more about how Matt and I feel about this game in just a second. But real quick, a time for a social media shout out. Folks, quick reminder, you can find us on social media at Indiana HQ, at the Hoosier Sound. Like us, follow us, share our stuff, tell a friend, share our links. Like that type of stuff really helps us grow this podcast. We need to, this is how we spread the word. We're going to be here through football season, men's basketball season, women's basketball season. We are here for ranked top 25 university stuff for the rest of the next several months. So spread the word, help us out. That's how you can help us grow and grow and grow and grow and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. I just think Indiana has the advantages here all around, Matt. I love the fact that Michigan State's not coming off a bye like all these other teams that Indiana's faced so far. MSU's 4-4. IU's a 7.5 point favorite. Who do you think wins this game and by how much?
IU wins this game. And I think it's 42-13. That's the final score. I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't see how Michigan State's really going to be able to consistently move the ball in this defense, especially since I think Childs is going to be running for his life on most plays. And IU is going to, Michigan State's not going to have much of a pass rush. So you're just going to let Kurtis Rourke pick them apart piece by piece. I'm fine with that. Chill.
I think the big thing this week is, you got to ban green from your wardrobe until Saturday, through Saturday. I think that's an important thing here. No, you can't wear green. It is going to be like the first legitimate, like tough-ish road environment that Indiana's going to play in all season. UCLA and Northwestern are not the same tier as Michigan State. They just aren't. As far as atmosphere, as far as crowd, as far as stadium. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I wouldn't be surprised if early Indiana has a false start penalty, maybe a delay of game penalty, or has to burn a first quarter timeout. But then I think really once the train gets on the tracks, uh, this is going to be a tough one. I think there's like this sentiment that, oh, Michigan State's going to be really fired up for a top 15 Indiana coming to town. I don't know if that's the case, really. Michigan State was fired up for this road game that they played against Michigan in Ann Arbor last Saturday. And it was tough, and it was physical, and it was intense, and it was 60 minutes, and then a post-game fight. There was a lot of grinding, grueling football played last Saturday. And Indiana this year has played teams in the Big Ten off of bye weeks, like consistently.
Yep.
This is a different story where Michigan State plays a tough, grueling 60-minute game against Michigan, fights Michigan post game. Michigan fights Michigan State post game. They both fought each other post game. And now Michigan State, yeah, they return home. It's in East Lansing, but you're going to have some just wear and tear coming off of that game Saturday against an in-state rival. I don't know how fired up Michigan State fans are going to be to see Indiana come to town. I hope we see a lot of cream and crimson in the crowd up in Michigan. It's not too tough of a trip, so I hope you see some Indiana fans in the building. I think Kurtis Rourke. I think it looks like he's going to play. If he plays, I think his Heisman case is going to get real strong on Saturday. I think Indiana's going to throw when they're up. I think they're going to throw when they're down. I think they're going to throw on first down. I think they're going to throw on third down. I think Indiana's going to win this game 52 to 10.
Okay.
52 to 10. So
42-13.
take the over because I think part of this too is Curt Cignetti can't let up in the second half, even with this team having a big lead, because you got to impress the committee and you got to impress the AP rankings, the CFP committee. Like Indiana's not going to let their foot off the gas pedal too much. And I don't know, maybe there's like a little implicit thing with Jonathan Smith, first year coach. Cignetti wants to show his first year peers like he showed Jed Fish last week. Hey, I'm the first year guy, man. Like I was the right pick here. So I think Indiana clears this pretty easily against the Spartans on Saturday. I think Michigan State's path to victory is they take an early lead, they stay balanced. Maybe Indiana has an injury or two. Kurtis Rourke isn't quite right. And Michigan State just kind of evenly sort of beats Indiana to death over 60 minutes. I just don't foresee that happening. We got 8 Big Ten games on Saturday, Matt.
Yep.
Indiana, Michigan State is one of them. We have action all across Saturday. 8 Big Ten games on Saturday from noon all the way to 7:30. It's very concentrated football. There's no late night start on Saturday. There's no Friday game. It's all Saturday. We like to make our Big Ten picks of the week every week here on this show. And you have 8 games to choose from, Matt, as far as possible upset picks, as far as a team you like against the spread, as far as an over-under that stands out to you. What are your Big Ten picks of the week for Saturday?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, you had to ask, but I'm glad you asked. Big Ten picks of the week. I've got Oregon covering against Michigan. They're favored by 14.5. There ain't no way in hell Michigan's keeping it within 14. I don't think Michigan's scoring 14 points. I think Oregon's scoring more than 28. So there you go. There's the difference there. I like Washington to upset USC this
Yeah.
weekend. I don't think USC is that good. USC is favored by 2.5 for some god-forsaken reason. I don't know why. Even though Washington's at home, USC. And lastly, for some reason, Northwestern is only favored by a single point against Purdue. Give me Northwestern to cover 1 point against Purdue. They're winning that football game. Purdue's not winning a game for the rest of the year. They're finishing 1-11. So everybody just buckle in because that's what's happening there.
I have some thoughts. And I don't want our podcast to go on for 2 hours. But I liked what you were saying about Washington. It's kind of like the Nebraska effect, right? Nebraska got their doors beaten by us. Then the following week, they looked all right. UCLA got their doors beaten by us. Following weeks. Yeah, okay, whatever. No, but we did. We beat their will out of their bodies on Saturday afternoon after the halftime. Like, I want people to understand, like, 14 points. Don't lose sleep over that. Indiana, like, that was MMA submission at its finest. Like, that was beautiful after halftime. That was 6 yards each carry, every carry. Justice Ellison deserved Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, but the ball knowers don't decide that. They like the fancy fantasy stats. So Justice Ellison didn't get his respected accolades there, but it's a Nebraska effect for Washington. I agree. I like Washington to win straight up against USC as well. I like Nebraska to cover 6.5. My second most passionate storyline, the thing I know most in college football outside of Indiana is one of the top 5 teams in the country. The thing I know second most is that Nebraska is a good football team. And they did it against Ohio State. I told you last week Nebraska's going to cover 25.5. They did easily. It was smooth. It was easy. Didn't even have to sweat that. Nebraska 6.5 at home against UCLA. Bowl eligibility on the line. Nebraska's a good football team. Nebraska's covering 6.5. And I have Penn State winning. It's the spotlight game of the week. And
I think they do. I think if it was a night game, I would be a little bit more confident Penn State. But it's not gonna be a night game. It's still gonna be an absolute juiced game. I'm gonna be watching. Well, that's a 12, right?
Yep.
That's a noon game.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be watching that before the IU game. I'm gonna be.
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. I'm so skeptical about this Ohio State team. I'm not saying they're bad. I think Ohio State's very, 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 very good. I think they have some warts. And
they have a big one. They have a big one. It's their head coach is an absolute pain.
I'm not saying they're bad. I think Ohio State's very, 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 very good. But I think Penn State at home, 105,000, crazy atmosphere. I don't care if it's Drew Aller or Pribula. Dylan Pribula? What's his first name? Pribula. But I liked what I saw from Pribula after halftime. Bo. That was not even close. Who's Pribula? Where did Dylan
Pribula. But
I loved what I saw from Pribula against Wisconsin after halftime, after Aller got injured. I was pretty tuned into that Penn State-Wisconsin game on Saturday night, and he was really, 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 really good.
You know who he reminds me of?
Will Levis. McSorley. Oh, okay, Trace McSorley. All right. Like college Will Levis. I was thinking a little bit of that. But I think McSorley is probably better for a lot of people. I think Penn State's going to win.
Will Levis.
I think college Will Levis was a fun player at Kentucky.
He was a good player. He was a good player.
Penn State. Yeah, I think this is the breakthrough. I love Penn State. I think Oregon and Penn State, as well as Indiana, are tier 1 of the Big Ten, and I think Ohio State's like tier 1.5. Like, that's kind of what I'm saying here. Yeah, look, Penn State, right? They go into West Virginia, make it look easy. They
Mm,
fight through. Like, I loved what Penn State did against USC. Penn State did at USC what Ohio State could not do at Oregon. And like that matters to me. Like, I'm sorry if the
mm,
results matter to me. But like Penn State doing to USC, I did not expect Penn State to win that game from behind. You guys have
yeah,
to watch what happens over the course of 60 minutes. It's not just, oh, Penn State was favored and then Penn State won. It's not that simple. They
yeah.
get kind of housed in the first half, the first two and a half quarters by USC. And Drew Aller figures it out, and Tyler Warren explodes. And you do it on the road after a cross country travel when you had to leave Harrisburg instead of State College. Like that was something that stood out to me. And then you go into Wisconsin, and Aller gets hurt in the first half just before halftime, and it's a tough environment. And your backup quarterback helps you win, just like Indiana's backup quarterback kind of helped IU take care of business. Taven Jackson made some mistakes, but he showed a lot of growth from what happened last season. These are the types of things that show me once you get into November and now December with the 12-team playoff, like these are the types of things that show me you can sort of overcome a lot of twists and turns that come your way during the season. Because playoff games are going to be hard, right? Penn State's game against Ohio State on Saturday is going to be hard. Indiana's game in Columbus is going to be hard.
Yeah.
But when you show over the course of the first 9 weeks that you can do things a few different ways, maybe your backup quarterback has to deliver. Maybe you got to go on the road and come from behind. Maybe there's somebody who gets suspended and the next man has to come up. Or maybe you win through the air and then you win on the ground and then you win on defense. Like it can happen a lot of different ways. But this is where Matt and I are different than all of you because we watch probably every game every week 24/7. So like when you see these things, so for that reason, like to me Ohio State hasn't dealt with that stuff well. Maybe I'll be wrong.
No, I agree.
I'm rooting
I
for
think
Ohio State. I'm rooting for Ohio State. I want Ohio State to be good, so I hope Ohio State wins. I just think Penn State's going to.
I will never, ever, ever in my life root for Ohio State. That by the way, side note, that fan base deserves the worst. That fan base deserves the worst. They feel like they are entitled to at least 10 win seasons every single year. Um, like I don't think there's a fan base in any sport on earth, even the Golden State Warriors fans of like the heyday of the KD Warriors. I didn't even hate them as much as I hate Ohio State fans because even they
Well,
understood what it was like to lose at some point. When's the last time Ohio State went under 500? It was like what, the 80s,
was it?
maybe?
Did they go under when Tressel
No,
got
no, it was 6-6. They
six and
went six and
six?
six. They went 6-6 still, and then they went 12-0 in Urban Meyer's first season. Remember, they were bowl
Yeah.
game. They still went undefeated. Um, I mean, that fan base does that. They need,
Um.
3-9 seasons. They really
Well,
do. They need them humbling.
well,
That
my
fan base.
my picks for Saturday are done. Let's talk about that Ohio State Nebraska game for a second.
Uh,
Before we wrap up, like, guys, you cannot have Ohio State above Indiana right now.
no,
Like, you can't. And we saw this coming.
no,
It's not that complicated. Nebraska's a good football team. Indiana is an elite football team. Indiana smacked the doors off Nebraska a week and a half ago. Nebraska, a good football team, played a great football team in Ohio State. And Nebraska kept it close until the end. Nebraska's good, right? They
yeah.
don't suck all of a sudden, do they?
They don't suck. They have their weaknesses, but they're
Sure. I'll
they're
give you that.
they're they're um they're somewhere in
Yeah.
between good and mediocre.
It's,
I
it's
think
the
I think
conversation's changing now, right? It's not
it's
funny how the narrative's all different now.
it would not surprise me if they end up a 10-win team this year, like with a bowl game. I think there's a chance they could go 9-3 and finish with a bowl game.
Yeah, they can't get
I
to. Oh,
really
I
do.
see. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's in
Yeah,
play. It's in play.
it's in play still for that team,
That
and I
would be
think
massive for Indiana, by the way, because we need one other team on the schedule to step up.
We do. We really do. Because it's not going to be Michigan State if we beat them. It's definitely not going to be Michigan if we beat them. It's not going to be Maryland, Washington, or you insert anybody who plays. It's not going to be anybody. So
Ohio
it
State
needs
ran
to
for
be.
64 yards on 28 carries. Tell me Indiana's not a better offense.
Tell me Indiana can't just hold Ohio State to the same amount of rushing.
Nebraska put up 273 yards, 152 through the air, 121 on the ground, scored 17 points. Tell me Indiana's not a better defense. It's not that complicated. Get your biases and your agendas out of the way. Nebraska, a good football team, got wrecked by Indiana, could have won in Columbus in a span of 7 days. Both on the road. It's not both at noon on a Saturday in sunny conditions. It's not complicated.
Some people are asking if Ohio State paid $20 million in NIL to their team to get worse.
It's not complicated. I mean, Indiana's got the better quarterback. Indiana's got the better offense, defense. It's not the
Head
same.
coach. I get a better head coach, better offense, better defense, better coordinators, better offensive line coach.
Now, here's what's interesting. Ohio State, earlier this year, went to East Lansing to beat Michigan State 38-7. You don't think Cignetti's paying attention to that? You don't think Curt Cignetti knows that scoreline? Indiana's going to be shooting to win by 32.
Yeah, but I also think Curt Cignetti would call that kind of thinking the warm and fuzzies, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
That's some rat poison. Some of them warm and fuzzies. Don't eat that.
Very true.
Just go kick their teeth in.
Very true.
Go execute. If IU executes at any level close to what they just did the last 2 weeks, they should roll over Michigan State. Shouldn't be a problem. I don't care that Ohio State won 38-7.
Yep.
We could win 45-35. I wouldn't care. I think I'd care if we won a walk-off field goal because I don't think Michigan State is that good. But I don't care as long as they win the game.
It's just Nebraska's a good football team. Nebraska's a good football team. They went into Columbus and they proved it. Just like they came into Bloomington and Indiana beat the doors off them. Don't overcomplicate it. It's staring at you right in front of your face. Embrace Indiana's eliteness in 2024. It's just the way it is. And by the way,
so nice.
I was also thinking about how for Indiana's Big Ten title race, which is a legitimate sentence in this day and age, if they like lose to Ohio State, like they can mathematically still possibly make it. I am scared for Purdue.
Is IU losing to Ohio State?
If it happens, like there is Indiana, I think right now is a 13.5 point underdog in the look ahead line. Whatever.
Oh God, give me that money. Give me that line. Give me that line.
But just like looking ahead, there's like some implied value here as far as Indiana hosting Purdue the last game of the season and then playing the title game in Indianapolis. That's kind of interesting as far as just the Big Ten title side of things. Because Lucas Oil Stadium is going to be filled with IU fans, regardless of who the opponent is. If Indiana gets there in the Big Ten title game. And all I'm saying is, if Indiana loses to Ohio State, the palate cleanser is going to be Purdue at home the following week. And I am nervous for Ryan Walters and the entire Purdue football program, if Curt Cignetti feels like he has to run up the score to prove something to the CFP committee, like you might see some single game records broken down the road because of the system.
I
Because of the
look
system.
I look I look forward to that. I plead for. Can we score 80 points from Purdue?
That like that's what I'm saying.
80
Like
points on Purdue? Like, I mean, we should do that anyways if we can, because I think it's just funny to have them be miserable.
like if Indiana's 10 and
Uh,
1 and they get Purdue at home the following week and they're like right on the bubble, right? Like say Indiana's 13, Indiana's 12 or 14 in the CFP rankings. And it's like, oh, you got to prove something to the CFP committee.
you know what also will happen if we lose to Ohio State? We're gonna play angry the next
Oh,
week.
that's what I
Like
exactly.
it's gonna be
Like,
for those that did not watch the
whew,
SEC in its heyday, those Nick Saban teams, especially right around the turn
yeah,
of 2009, 2010, when Cignetti was there.
right.
If
With Mark
Alabama
Ingram, Julio
lost,
Jones.
if Alabama lost the game, the team that they played next, literally, literally, they might as well have. They might as well send out 11 walk-ons. It was. It didn't
Well,
matter who was on the field.
and then the funny thing is, if Indiana wins that game in Columbus and they're 11 and 0, and you basically are a win from clinching Big Ten title, a Big Ten title game spot, you might see all the starters pulled in in the first half against
Yeah.
Purdue, and Curt Cignetti probably has enough confidence in his second and third stringers to take care of that game. Um,
I'm
it's
pretty sure
just
IU's second string could beat Purdue by 2 scores.
it's just fascinating to look ahead. Well, and I think Purdue's going to be playing some backups and stuff too. It feels like they're going to go through some transition here, just as far as their players. Like Purdue should try some new things the rest of the year. They should play younger guys. They should try to figure out what's in store for their future as far as some of their future
Mm-hmm.
players are concerned. And if that happens in Bloomington, the last game of the season, I mean, it could be really funny to see, Tyler Cherry get the entire second half as Indiana's just or
I
Alberto
would love.
Mendoza just
I would love
getting
to
the
see
entire
Mendoza.
Mendoza get. By the way, his brother at Cal had an insane game on Saturday. So if
Mm-hmm.
Alberto Mendoza's season has not been good enough being part of this team, um, his brother at Cal had an insane game on Saturday, getting some of those Player of the Week honors all over. Shout out there. So it's just funny to think, looking ahead, the type of ramifications that could be there for that bucket game at the end of the year, um, because everything is in play. A 17 game season is in play for Indiana, which is crazy to say, but it is real. I mean, technically, we may not be halfway through the season. Technically, we may not be halfway through the season, and so that's where we are. By the way, only 8 other times in school history has Indiana won 8 games. Kind of
He's great, dude.
kind of incredible. This is number 9, the ninth such occurrence. Eight
Yeah.
games, not 10, not 11, not 12, just 8.
So
And that's what.
we're 9-8 Indiana, is what you're saying?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. And Indiana's never won 10 games in a season ever. And so
Break that this year.
and so that's what's at stake. Indiana's won 9 games twice, 1945 and of course the 1967 team that we've talked about so much. With the win against Michigan State, Indiana would set the school record for the best start ever. As we wind up here on this Wednesday, Matt, any final thoughts from your end? Indiana 8-0, doing a lot of good things. AP poll all over the place. CFP rankings out next week. Michigan State on Saturday.
One, let's go crush Michigan State. Two, hopefully that'll show up very nicely in the college football playoff rankings when we will be in that next week. And then three, I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit more about the college basketball scrimmage. The women also played there.
Yep.
Uh,
They're going to be so fun
their
this season.
their
They're going to be
scrimmage,
so
they're
fun
going to
this
be
season.
really good.
I can't wait.
One thing I will say to mention about the scrimmage, we did shoot 4 of 19 from three,
Yeah.
semicolon. However,
Yeah.
comma, I am not worried at
Okay.
all. Miles Rice, who's a good shooter, goes 0 of 3. That won't happen again. Carlisle was like, what, 1 of 6? I don't think that's going to happen ever again. He's a pretty good spot up shooter as it is. And then Luke Goody went 0 of 3. I guarantee you that also won't happen again. So the shots will go down. It's just they were 0-11 in the first half because they were rusty and weren't used to the game speed. And they shot 50% in the second half. They went 4 of 8 from three in the second half. Not worried at all. In fact, I'm probably a little bit more confident than I was before, even though we shot 4 of 19.
Well, I like the free throw shooting. I thought the free throw
So what we
shooting
shot
stood
at
out.
80 what percent? 85?
Yeah. Yeah,
Something like that.
exactly. And so like I like what I'm seeing there as far as the free throw shooting is concerned. We did see Miles Rice go through a little bit of a slump last year as far as shooting. So, I'm looking forward to seeing him bouncing back here, exhibition play, early non-conference battle for Atlantis. Lou Goody, right, part of that shooting thing. Also, he'll figure that out. No question
He
about
will hit
that.
shots. He
Yeah,
will absolutely hit shots.
absolutely. He
It's
will.
not a matter of if,
He'll.
it's a matter of when for both
Yep,
of them.
exactly. He'll clean that up. Um, this is fun. It was fun to see Indiana and Knoxville on Saturday. Women's team's going to be really fun to watch this year. They're going to play a little bit differently, I think, and it's going to be fascinating to see that take place. And then, yeah, I mean, AP poll, you lost a lot of credibility as far as what happened over the last couple of rankings. Indiana, I think, is going to cruise against Michigan State on Saturday on Peacock. Folks, that about
Peacock.
wraps it up for our 337th show, The Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at The Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.